Hello everyone and welcome to Deck the Hall DIY Studio. This is going to be our tutorial on our Santa tray. So if you're joining us today, chances are you ordered a kit for this round Santa tray. It will come with the handles already attached, so that will be set for you. It will be standard espresso. This is 15 inches, and then you will have your stencil and personalization on it if you selected that option. We also will include paint, up to 3 colors, and the sponges for it. And then of course this instructional video. Okay, to get started on this tray, we have decided that we're going to dry brush our background white. So we're going to add a more of a rustic feel to this. And then our stencil coloring is going to be red. So if you're interested in doing something like that, you will take your orange sponge, you'll get some white paint on it, or any color, because you could really do any color. And then I like to just do a couple of practice pieces over here. Now that's darker than I want it to be, so I'm going to take some of the paint off. Okay, so I have very little paint on, and then I'm just going to start going across the tray in a sweeping motion. And this is where you really get to put your own spin on your project. Now, because the handles are already intact, you'll just want to be aware of where they are. And if you do get paint on the handle, just wipe it off with a wet rag, or we always have baby wipes on hand when we're DIYing out here. So keep that in mind to have available as you do this project. So continue using your sponge to put as much or as little paint on as you would like, and continue this until you get it to look the way you want it to. All right, once you have painted it to your liking, you're going to need to sand before we apply the stencil. So you'll either sand more or less depending on the look that you want to achieve. We have a lot of white on ours, and I just want a little bit of that darker stain to show through. So I'm gonna do a little bit more sanding than I would if I just needed to sand to apply my stencil. So I'm going to sand it up, but again, only sand as much as you want, but sand the entire piece at least a little bit to apply your stencil, and then grab a paper towel or use your hand like I was to dust off your tray. Okay, and then go around as much as you'd like, and then we will start our stencil process. Okay, we're moving on to the stencil. So I put my tray aside. You'll want to do this next part on a flat surface, so you won't want to do it on top of your tray. What you're going to do is you're going to flip over your stencil, smooth it out one more time. And when we are peeling stencils, I like to start in a corner and peel back. Now you're gonna go slow because you'll notice right here, I have part of my stencil that came up, so I need to push it back down. Okay, so you'll want to go slow in order to peel back the stencils. So you're taking the white paper and pulling it back from the blue and the transfer tape. As those little pieces come up, you just want to nudge them back down. So keep your eye on all parts of the stencil as you are pulling back. And do this part slowly. Okay, once you've pulled back your entire stencil, you can keep your white paper and use that to put your paint on when you're working with your stencil if you want, or where you're going to dab off, because we don't want to use a lot of paint. So next step will be to take your stencil, and you don't want it to stick to itself, so be very careful with it. I'll bring my tray back. You're gonna apply your stencil where you would like it. Now, because there's handles on here, you're gonna have to wedge it down a little bit. Now, I'm making sure that my names down here are on and my Dear Santa on the top is set. And I'm pretty happy with where my placement is right here. making sure it's straight with my handles as well. Okay, so I'm going to take my hand and run it through the middle to apply pressure. Once you apply pressure, your stencil is down. So through the middle, and then you're going to push out to the sides. Okay, and then we're going to repeat that process of peeling up the transfer tape. This time we want all the blue to stay down on your tray. So you'll take your transfer tape and start peeling back. If any of the blue comes up, push it right back down onto your tray. If you want, you could take a scissors and cut off these sides if it makes it easier for you to peel. That would be fine too. So remove all of this and then we'll talk about our next step, which is painting. Okay, now I'm all set. I've removed all my transfer tape, and then take your hands and just push down. Make sure there are no air bubbles where you're going to paint. And then you can grab your white sponge. I'm going to use red, like I said before, and our entire print here is going to be red. So I'm going to load the sponge with paint. There's a lot of paint on here, so I'm going to dab it off. So unload. So it has a very light coat of paint, thin like tissue paper. And then you're just going to dab across. Then you can load, unload, and dab across. So the nice thing about doing light coats of paint is that when you're done doing light coats all the way down, you can go back up to the top and add a second coat. Also, nice thin coats will minimize your chance of having the paint bleed under the stencil. Okay, so just remember, light thin coats. If you have any air bubbles, you'll want to push those out, especially where you're going to dab paint. If I had an air bubble right here, I wouldn't really worry about it because I'm not painting over here. Okay, so just be aware of where your air bubbles are if you have any, and then nice light coat dabs. Okay, once you have painted it, do as 1 or 2 coats or 3 coats, but really thin coats. Then you can start to peel your stencil up. Now your stencil will pull a little bit of your paint if it wasn't completely dry, so that shouldn't be too big of an issue unless you were going for a solid look. And as you peel, you're ripping this. That is okay to rip it because you're throwing it away. So feel free to pull this off and then come back with an X-Acto knife or your fingernail or a tweezers, and you'll pull out all of the little pieces. Now my tips on how to do that are to go very flat. Get the tip of the X-Acto knife just under a corner of the inside of a letter, and try not to go into it too much when you're pulling, so you don't gouge your wood here. So you'll remove all of your stencil and then go back for those little pieces, and then we'll talk about our final steps. Okay, once you have peeled up all of your little pieces, you'll probably find a lot of little pieces all over your fingers like we did, and you probably saw little hands in here during the video. So my kids were able to help me with this project. So this is a great project to do as a family. Once you're done with it, you'll have your tray. It's so adorable. Send us some photos to Deck the Halls DIY Studio on Facebook or on Instagram. We'd love to see what you've been up to, or even tag us in your posts. You will want to clear coat this or seal it. So check. We don't have any recommendations, so just check before you buy a product to do that, that it is food safe if you intend on placing the cookies and the carrots right on your tray. Thanks for DIYing with Deck the Halls DIY Studio, and we'll see you next time.